Welcome to the True Crime Cafe. I'm Becky.
And I'm Angie, and you won't believe the case I have for you today.
What do you got this week, Angie?
I have the story of how one brave teenager helped solve 3 murders.
Wow.
So, September 9th, 1996 was an ordinary day for the Silva family until the late afternoon. On that day, Sofia, who was 16, grabbed her homework and drink and went out onto the front porch of her Spotsylvania, Virginia family home.
I know where that is.
I know where that is too. I live not too far from Spotsylvania a couple of years after this happened.
Okay. Yeah, we used to go to field trips there when we homeschooled.
So around 4:30, she just disappeared. Like nothing. There was no sign of a struggle. Her sister and the family dog were inside the house at the time that she went missing and heard absolutely nothing.
That's weird.
Like, you have dogs. So, like, somebody pulls in your driveway and the dogs start barking. A search was immediately launched because she was 16. Unfortunately, there was no sign of the missing teenager.
Okay.
Her body was found 5 weeks later in a shallow pond in King George County, which is the next county down.
Yeah.
I believe King George is either 1 or 2 counties south of Spotsylvania.
Yeah, it's in the vicinity.
Mm-hmm. Sadly, there would be no leads in this case until 2 other girls in Spotsylvania went missing.
Wow.
On May 1st, 1997, Kristin, who was 15, and Katie, who was 12, last name is Lisk, their sisters, got off their school bus around 3 p.m. Nothing seemed amiss until their dad called home and got no answer. Normally, one of the Lisk parents was home when the girls got home from school, but on that day, mom and dad both got held up at work. So the rule was if neither was home, then the girls were supposed to call them and let them know, hey, we're home from school. Like when I was growing up, I had to do that. Like I'd get home from school and I'd call my mom at work and say, hey, I'm home.
I'm a little older than that. So not much, but my mom was always there. And like even until I got to high school. And then if I got home first, she would be home shortly after because she was a substitute teacher. When my boys were young, if they got home first and we weren't there, which only happened maybe twice, the rule was stay on the bus and the bus driver will take you back to school because we had a child predator in the neighborhood who liked little boys.
Okay.
Yep.
I was going to say that wasn't an option when I was in school.
Yeah.
So when their dad received no answer to his phone call, he left work early to go home. When he arrived, he found the backpack belonging to one of his daughters on the front lawn, but his daughters were not there. Again, an all-out search for the missing teenagers. Well, basically teenagers. You know, Katie was 12, but was launched. On May 4th, after discussing it with the parent, the ground search was called off. The bodies of the girls were found 5 days later, 40 miles away in the South Anna River.
That's horrible.
Once the bodies of Lisk's sisters were found, many people were convinced this case was connected to the Sofia Silva murder case. All 3 girls were teenagers, slim, and had long dark hair.
So the killer had a type. I'm assuming by your intro that they're all connected, but it sounds like he had a type.
So, and we'll post pictures so that you can see the girls. Their facial features aren't the same, but the general description of them is.
Okay.
They were also taken from their homes with no real sign of struggle, found in bodies of water, and were all believed to have been strangled or suffocated. However, the police did not believe they were connected and continued to treat them as separate cases. That is, until the autopsy of Kristin Lisk revealed something very interesting.
Uh-oh.
What do you think?
Hopefully not a rape kit. Good.
On her body, a hair was found, one that belonged to Sofia Silva.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that coming.
So a task force was formed. But sadly, they would not get any solid leads until 2002.
Wow.
Mhm. During that time, the task force chased 12,000 leads, obtained dozens of search warrants, and considered countless quote unquote good suspects. Like
Okay.
people thought, were good for the crime, so to
Yeah,
speak.
fit the profile.
The cases were never classified as cold cases because the task force never stopped working on them in all that time.
Wow, that's unusual
It
and
is. It is.
really
And
good.
I think in part was because of the citizens in the county. Like they were all up in arms and understandably so.
Exactly.
Like this was a huge news story.
Yeah.
Huge. When I lived in Virginia, we would get the newspaper and there would be an article, hey, they found this or they're following this lead, or you know what I'm saying? So there was
Mhm.
it was constant.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing about it, but I grew up in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, really close to Northern Virginia, but I don't think we got news from that far down.
Well, Spotsylvania is closer to Richmond than it is to
Yeah, like
Washington,
DC
D.C.
or yeah.
So on June 24th, 2002, 2 states away in Columbia, South Carolina, another teenager went missing.
Oh no.
On that day, 15-year-old Kara Robinson was in her friend's front yard watering the plants. So her and her friend had plans. They were going to go out, summertime. They were going to go out and play.
Yeah.
But the friend's mom said that the friend had to water the flowers out front before she'd go anywhere. So Kara was doing that while her friend was inside taking a shower so that they could get it done faster and they could go on with their plans.
Understandable. I had friends who would be like, let me help you clean your bedroom so you can leave the house. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So a man pulled up pretending to be a magazine salesman. While she was looking through a magazine, the man pointed a gun at her and forced her into a 50-gallon plastic container, like a Rubbermaid container. Her kidnapper took her back to his apartment where he put fuzzy blue handcuffs on her and secured her to the bed.
Okay, that's creepy because it's one thing to handcuff a teenager to the bed. And it's not another thing to use the fuzzy blue handcuffs that I got
for adults.
Adult playtime. And this was his apartment was in Columbia also.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a little ways from both of us. And
yeah, she was repeatedly raped over the course of 18 hours. The next morning, Kara was able to unscrew the D-ring with her tongue and teeth while her attacker was asleep. She managed to escape the apartment and ran up to 2 men in the parking lot with the handcuffs still on her.
Oh my gosh.
And convinced them to take her to the police, which obviously they did. While being interviewed, she was able to provide the police with the serial number inside the plastic tub, the right and left turns they took while they were driving to his apartment, even the name of the dentist from the card on the refrigerator. Like she would be, as much as she was able to provide the police, she is like every police officer's dream witness.
Right?
Me, I can barely remember what's on my refrigerator and I look at it every day. You know what I'm saying?
I can barely tell you the lefts and rights to get through my house from the kitchen to the office. And
for her to do that at 15 years old is incredible. Not only to be able to do it at 15 years old, but be able to do it at 15 years old while she's in the middle of this crime happening to her.
Yeah, even at age 15, there's no way I could have done that. No way.
So Richard Mark Abonitz was the perpetrator. When he realized that Kara had escaped, he realized he had to get away before the police arrived. When the police arrived, they were searching the apartment, but found something interesting during that search. Upon opening a Foot Locker, they found a 1997 newspaper from Virginia that included an article about the Lisk sisters. They
no way.
also found notes that authorities believe described other locations in Virginia where he stalked other girls. Authorities in South Carolina contacted the authorities in Virginia, obviously, who were soon on their way south.
Yeah.
During the final search of the apartment, fibers from a bath rug that Ivanitz had when he lived in Virginia. So in South Carolina, they found this bath rug that he had when he lived in Virginia that matched those found on the girls. They also found fibers from a blanket that matched samples found on Sofia and Kati. Surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, because let's be honest, most criminals aren't masterminds, Ivanitz still owned the Ford Taurus he had in Virginia. Upon searching the car, fibers found in the trunk matched fibers found on the girls.
Oh my gosh.
Biggest piece of evidence found were Kristin Lisk's fingerprints inside the trunk. So we're talking, what, 6 years?
Yeah.
No, 97 to 2002 is
5 years.
5 years. 5 years, those fingerprints were still there. Now, I'm not going to lie. When I clean my car, I don't clean the inside of the trunk lid. Like, I just clean the outside.
My husband probably does, but it's because he has a history of detailing cars at previous jobs. Mm-hmm. And when he was a firefighter, they had to detail the fire truck. Like, they would get bored between calls. He was in a slow station for a while, and he would just go out and detail the fire truck. So he sometimes, now that he's retired and does not have a job, sometimes he'll just go out and spend an afternoon cleaning my car. And so he probably would. But for me, no.
Authorities were also able to match head hair found in Kati's sock and 2 other hairs found on the other 2 girls to Ivanitz's DNA. During Ivanitz's run from the police, he made it all the way to Sarasota, Florida.
Wow.
Okay. From Columbia to Sarasota is a good, I would say, at least 4 or 5 hours, I guess.
Yeah.
If I'm guessing, just based on my
Alexa, how far is it from Columbia, South Carolina to Sarasota, Florida?
From Columbia, Sarasota is 535.6 miles away by car.
Okay, that's further from where I live to where I drive in Virginia.
Yeah, that's like a 10-hour drive.
Uh-huh. Once in Sarasota, he was cornered by police and a police dog. He then committed suicide instead of facing jail. Despite having this dark secret, he had a seemingly normal life. He served for 8 years in the Navy, was awarded the Navy Good Conduct Medal. He was described as charming and friendly. He had been married twice. However, he did have a criminal history in that he had a charge for exposing himself to an underage girl in Florida 15 years prior. But, like, how do you go from that to kidnapping and killing 3 and kidnapping? So, and the end result would have been him killing her as well.
Right.
During their investigation, the police determined that he had made multiple scouting trips and took careful notes on potential victims. He left work early on the day Sofia disappeared and called in sick the next day. He also skipped work on the day that the Lisk sisters disappeared. He had taken the full week off when Kara was abducted.
Oh my gosh.
Upon learning of her daughter's murderer committing suicide, Phyllis Silva had this message for the Ivanitz family. I know that this is a trying and sorrowful time for you. You have lost a loved one. You loved him. You cared about him, but you can find peace with God. So in my opinion, she showed tremendous grace towards his family, knowing what he had done to her daughter.
Absolutely. I'm not sure I could do the same in that situation.
I'm telling you right now, I know I could. Not at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe further down the line, but not at that point. Kara Robinson is now a grown woman.
Okay.
So she did not let what happened to her define her life, at least not in a negative way. She was mad when he committed suicide because she wanted to face him in court to show him that he chose the wrong girl.
Yeah, obviously.
Kara went on to form relationships within law enforcement and complete the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. She went to work for the agency that investigated her case as a school resource officer, a sex crime and child abuse investigator, and a victim's advocate. And
That's
she did
awesome.
that until she started having children of her own.
So she's like a real life Olivia Benson from Law and Order SVU.
Yes. So through the years, and I'm reading this directly from her website. Through the years, Kara realized that she survived for a very specific purpose: to spread hope and encouragement to other survivors, to remind them that they are not alone, that they can heal, and that they are stronger than what happened to them, that we are who we are because of what happened, but we are not defined by it. She uses her experience to speak to groups around the country by telling her story to help educate those who work with victims and to empower victims.
Awesome.
We can link to her website.
Yeah, we will when we make the social media post about this episode.
The website is Kara Robinson Chamberlain.com.
Okay.
It's a story I heard a lot about while living in Virginia and in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I like that her tenacity and her will to get out of the situation that she was in not only returned her home and, brought this to an end for her family, but it also brought an end to the suffering of 2 other families in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even though they didn't get justice in the courts, they're not sitting there wondering still 20 years later, is that the person who killed my child?
Exactly. And I probably mentioned it in previous episodes, but when my nephew was murdered at the end of 2007, we were blessed with a really quick trial that came to an end in early 2009, like not even a year and a half later. Mm-hmm. It was super quick. And I can't imagine what it's like for these families who have to wait years and years, because I know the agony of just waiting that short time and what it put our family through, and to go for many years, decades, or like never finding out. It always breaks my heart when we're watching old episodes of Unsolved Mysteries and they have the update and it says their parents died before they ever found out who the killer was.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's a very sad story. I mean, all murders are sad. Don't get me wrong. They are.
Yeah, especially when it's a sex crime and a child.
When it happens to somebody in their early teens or younger, like for me, it's even more sad because not only do I think about that, but I think about all the life that they're never going to get to live and experience stuff. So,
yeah, there was an article recently about a father who shot his 3 sons, a mother who drowned her daughter. And there's like,
I've been avoiding those articles.
Exact same. And there was one day when I got my, People Magazine newsletter, and it has, 5 cases in it, and 3 of them were about kids. And I was like, okay, people can't do this today. So yeah, it's just, they're a little more heartbreaking when it's a young person involved who is the victim.
Yes. But the things that stand out to me from this case is it wasn't the standard, she's a teenager, she ran away.
Exactly.
It was immediately searches were launched. It never became a cold case in the true sense of a cold case. Like, it was continuously worked, so those were the things that stood out to me the most from the police investigation side.
Kudos to them for keeping it going. Because so often they're overloaded with so much work that, the files go in the standard cardboard box that you see on TV, and it goes in the basement and just gathering dust. And so
every once in a while, they'll pull them out.
Right. If they get a tip or something. Or
yeah.
So, yeah. And good for Kara. I'm really, really glad that her life turned out
Oh yeah, because she so could have gone down a whole different path.
Yeah.
As a result of what happened to her.
And we've seen that happen in other cases.
But she absolutely did not want what happened to her to define her.
Yeah.
So kudos to Kara.
Yes.
For being like everybody, oh my God, I want to witness like this witness.
Yeah.
And for using what she went through to help us. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And what remarkable skills. I mean, just remembering the rights and lefts. Like when I was 15, I would have had no idea. I had no sense of direction at all.
Especially if I'm in a container.
Right?
Like,
I wouldn't have thought to look at the serial number. I would have just been afraid for my life, and that would have been it. So I have read elsewhere that if you're ever kidnapped, touch as much as possible, touch as many things as possible. And I'm not sure if these other victims, the two sisters or the other girl, were told any of this. And that's why they found their fingerprints in the car. But that is one thing I've heard. Touch as much as possible. Spit on something. Just leave as much DNA as possible in case things go south, which hopefully they don't. But
like it is so incredible when you hear about somebody so young that was able to help so much.
Exactly. And how brave to work to free herself when he's laying there sleeping right there. Yeah. So Kara, if you ever hear this, you're kind of our hero. And thank you for using your experience to better the lives of other people.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Angie.
You are welcome.
Stay caffeinated.
And join us next time for another cup of crime.